Sam Okus, Editor-in-Chief of Nation's Restaurant News, here with Kelley Fechner, Region Director for Datassential. Kelley, thank you for joining today.
Glad to be here.
And Kelley, we're going to talk trends, because what Datassential is all about is collecting data, following the trends of the restaurant industry. Give me some highlights. Let's start with menu trends. What are some menu trends right now that you're looking at?
Yeah, some of the menu trends we're seeing, it's been an interesting year or year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the trends that we're starting to see are things like, how do we keep innovation going, but how do we use the ingredients we have in the restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
right? We know that there's problems with supply chain, so it really is more about, we want innovation, but we don't want to make it more complex
Right.
in the current industry. So, yeah, we see more trends happening with non-alcoholic beverages.
Okay.
So an easy place to add fruits, savory coffees, lots of easy innovation with beverages, and then desserts is the other one.
Interesting.
So again, different toppings, create something new, combining, again, things that you have directly in the operations currently,
Yeah.
and just creating something new and different. So those are where we're seeing innovation happening right now with the supply chain problems. But we want to get back to where we used to be. We used to see about 400 new products being launched every single month.
Wow.
Pre-COVID,
Yeah.
we're at about 350 a month.
Oh, okay.
So we'd like to get back to more innovation, keeping operations top of mind for consumers, so when they're
Yeah.
ready to come back to a restaurant, they think of your restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's all about efficiency, right? And so
is.
that's what you're explaining here. But what about shrinking of menus? Because I'm hearing a lot about that
Yes.
from restaurant operators today, too. How much are you guys seeing that?
Yeah, we're absolutely seeing it. There's two different things going on, right? So during COVID, 60% of all menus shrunk,
Oh, wow.
which was, to see 2/3 of restaurants shrinking is
Significant.
menus shrinking. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It makes sense. We only think about if we didn't shrink menus, how much worse the supply chain would be, which
Yeah.
is kind of my thinking on that. Is just, I can't even imagine where we'd be
Yeah.
if that were the scenario. The other thing that we're now starting to see is, the shrinkage, menus shrunk by about like 10%
Okay.
across everybody. So when we start looking at trends, most trends, you see them going up, and then there's a little bit of a dip. And then we kind of talk to the client or customers and say, okay, is it down 10% or more? Then you need to be worried. But most of the time we're seeing a lot of those trends are down 4 or 5%, and we can at least tell the story of it's at least not down 10. And there have been things that have still continued to grow.
Yeah.
Plant-based. We're here at the restaurant show, you see a little bit of plant-based
A lot
stuff
of
here.
plant-based.
Still,
Yeah.
we're, 2017 was the first chain, TGI Fridays, that introduced a plant-based burger, and it just continues to grow.
Wow.
And so that's been an interesting one. And growing beyond meat and burgers to chicken and fish and chorizo,
Right.
and so there's so many things happening from that perspective.
Yeah, it just feels like with plant-based, we just stopped talking about it because there were so many other things to talk about. Last couple of years have been all about operational pivoting and making sure operations are sound. But obviously, menus really drive the bus for why customers choose to go to restaurants. So do you get a sense that now that restaurants have figured out the operational piece, how to survive a global pandemic and get your restaurant set up for the future, will they start looking more at menus and LTOs and things to drive the customer visit?
Yeah, I think that's the way forward, is how do you get innovation moving forward, getting that back on track and beyond the non-alcoholic beverages and desserts back to the entrees. But I think we still have a little bit further to go. Obviously, COVID is behind us, but labor shortage is still a challenge. So having a new product on the menu, you have to teach the chefs how to cook that. So they're still trying to stay simplistic or creating something that's really interesting, top of mind. Because it is what's going to get consumers thinking about what they're going to buy and where they're going to go. The other thing that we're seeing is with inflation, right? So we've got inflation, labor, shortages, all kind of coming on at the same time, supply chain. And so with even inflation, whether we're seeing it at the restaurants, menu pricing, it's also everywhere. So it's gas prices. We're all feeling it. 96% of consumers are saying, yeah, I feel inflation.
Yeah.
And then we ask them, what are you going to pull back on? And half of those consumers say restaurant visits.
Oh, interesting.
So the next thing that we want to do is to figure out what are those visits. Is it family meals? Is it delivery meals? What is going to be that? That's our next focus, is to figure out where consumers are going to pull back.
Well, and if then there's a recession, they also
Don't
might
say the R
tighten,
word.
they might tighten the belt a little bit more, and then
Absolutely.
also pull back on restaurant visits, although then there tends to be a trade down from casual to QSR fast casual. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with all that if we have a recession.
Yeah, and the other thing that we're seeing as well is it something new and different from an LTO perspective, or do we go to value?
Mm-hmm.
And so that value piece is interesting because you want to make sure it's something you can walk away from. The past recession, it was harder to walk away from. If you do a dollar menu, it's hard to change it to $1.50, right? So we need to be cautious of how we think about the value LTOs that we do as well.
All right, let's talk about the restaurant of the future. I know you guys are tracking some of that too. What does it look like for you? What do you guys see in the data that the restaurant of the future is becoming?
Yeah, the restaurant of the future is going to be so interesting because there's so many different things that we're seeing, from AI in the drive-thru. So Checkers and Rallies, they've got AI in their drive-thru. It's asking, do you want to upsize it? Do you want to make it a combo? Do you want to add a dessert or a shake? Anything along those lines. And AI, machines don't get upset when somebody tells you no, where the crew is going to say, well, wait a minute. So that's a really interesting tact. I think we'll continue to see more of that. Screens, obviously, we talk about kiosk ordering. Well, it doesn't really have to be a kiosk anymore. We're doing it all on our phones.
Right.
You know, the QR codes have kind of come back.
Yeah,
right?
amazingly.
We thought they were worth nothing. And here they are.
Yeah.
You know, they show up everywhere.
Right.
The other thing here at the restaurant show, the amount of robots that we see is just interesting, whether it's servers, serving robots, whether it's going to be servers or robots that come up and you give your dirty plates to, cleaning robots, all of those things that just help take away some of that pressure. And the technology that we're seeing, it also helps to let the crew that's there bring a human touch. Right? So we think about what the restaurant looks like and how the crew is interacting. And if they're doing too many things and we have a labor shortage, they're not thinking about the customer. And so even though there is a little bit of concern about robots and is it taking away somebody's job, this is a situation where it can actually make the crew have better interaction with the customers, which I think is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So.
And maybe employees would rather do the hospitality than the cooking or the cleaning, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Who wants to clean? You don't want to get told no for the upgrade every single time in the drive-thru. So it's an interesting perspective.
So what should we look for in the future? As you guys track trends of today, what will be the trends of tomorrow, either menu or operationally?
I think once we get past kind of this phase, whether we go into a recession and kind of come out of that, it's still about better for you. I feel like we were already in that mindset of mind health and any foods that help my own body and mind health. We're seeing all of that, and it hit prior to COVID and then became important again. And I think there's some slowdown with that just because of everything else going on with the restaurant industry. But I do think that that's going to come back. People are going to want to keep thinking about how do I, mindfulness, and how do I keep or intake things that are just better for me, better for my body, and make me better, my health better. So I think that's an interesting one. The plant-based is not changing. It is an interesting one because we talk about this and it's never going to be the top selling thing on the menu, but it is that most of the restaurants have some sort of plant-based, and it just is going to keep growing. The younger consumers, it is absolutely what they're looking for, and how do we sustain the environment? And there's so many things that come from that perspective.
Yeah. Kelley Fechner, Region Director at Datassential, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Always happy to be here.